Hi, Eric. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Glad to be here. How are you feeling today?
Great. Glad to
Good.
be here.
So, I just want to jump right in. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So, you opened the track Diamonds with ad-libs referring to the street name, Mark Trail. I'm pretty familiar with this road. I wanted to know, I was curious, who are you and where are you from? Like, where are your origins?
I'm from South Carolina.
Got it.
Anderson, South Carolina. It's close to Clemson, for those that don't know. But I grew up in South Carolina and moved to Georgia after I got out of the Marine Corps. So I've actually been in Georgia longer than I've lived in South Carolina at this point. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. And this specific street, Mark Trail, have you lived here? Is this a
Oh yeah, that Mark Trail is the place that I moved to when I came home from the military.
Okay.
Yeah, my sister and her husband at the time had a house there and allowed me to move in. And my nieces live there, and that's where I actually started to make beats.
Okay.
In that house in the basement. They gave me the basement and allowed me to set up my music equipment there. And that's where I actually started to hone my craft in music. It's on Mark Trail, so it holds a special place in my heart.
Okay. Strictly just for musical starts and things like that, or is this more so where you're introduced to all things in life?
I was introduced to a lot of things on that street. Good and bad.
Good and bad.
Good and bad. That's where I actually got involved with selling narcotics.
Okay.
Was on that street. I was introduced to people who were in that lifestyle. And by me doing music, I was introduced to those guys because they were actually into doing music also.
Right.
So everything kind of crossed in together, you know, from the music and the streets. So, yeah, I was exposed to a lot on Mark Trail. Yeah.
Okay. And so how much of the narcotics and music, how much of that like affected the path that you took there on from Mark Trail to the rest of your life?
I think it affected it a lot because a lot of the people that I was surrounded by were more into the streets than the music.
Right.
And I don't think that everybody was on the same page. So I was definitely passionate about my music, but being distracted by fast money,
right,
definitely took away from me focusing on my craft. You know, I have a lot of regret about that. I allowed myself to be tempted by fast money instead of staying focused on my passion.
Right. And speaking about fast money and the track War, which is I really like that one. You talk about an outside war going on in the streets. And so my question is, how much do you believe that your outward circumstances affected your decisions, and how much do you think you were just making poor choices? So how much do you think the environment you were in?
That's a good question. I would say, you know, not to be arrogant, but I feel I'm very intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel that a lot of the things that happened in my life during that time were poor choices.
Right.
Poor choices in friends, poor choices in the places. You know, I was almost killed just from sitting in the car, you know, being with somebody that was involved in that life. So it was something that had totally nothing to do with me. And I'm sitting in the car and bullets are flying, you know, into the car. And by the grace of God, I wasn't hit. And you know, I bring up being intelligent because I should have made better choices. I'm smart enough now, and I was smart enough then to make better choices. And I won't blame the circumstances for the way things turned out. I would blame poor decision making.
Right. You hear that a lot in your song, New Gospel, where you speak about being militant, thinking like Malcolm X, and being educated. And so, in contrast to a song like Diamonds, where you're being quite flaunty and talking about all of your success, how much do you think the Eric is more outward and more humble? So what do you think the balance is, and how important is it for you to have that balance of?
I think it's a time for everyone.
Right.
It's a time to be humble. And it's a time to encourage yourself because, you know, put it bluntly, it's a lot of haters out here. So you have to keep yourself motivated. And you have to, you know, I'm finally finding the balance between being humble and also being confident. You know, I think everybody should have a balance of that. I think you can be confident without belittling anybody else. You know, you can, and sometimes you have to remind people how good you are, you know, to be honest, because you have to believe that. And definitely in this genre of music, you have to have a lot of confidence, you know, and that's what I wanted to display on this album, a good balance of confidence and humbleness.
Right.
You know, and I hope I pulled that off.
You did.
Yeah.
In hip hop today, it seems that the music has changed from glorifying selling drugs to glorifying using drugs. And so, in your personal opinion, what do you think the relationship between hip hop and drugs is? Like, how do you feel about that?
I think you said it perfectly. You know, when I first started doing hip hop, it was more about hustling and selling drugs. And like you said, now it's more about doing drugs and glorifying the addict,
right?
You know, that does the drugs. So, and I think that has a lot of influence on the younger generation because these artists sing about doing drugs, but yet they're not doing the amount of drugs that they're telling you to do on their records. And I think common sense would show you that a lot of these artists are very successful.
Yeah.
And with that success comes a lot of deadlines, a lot of meetings, a lot of planning, a lot of recording.
Yeah.
And there's no way that a person could be an addict to that degree and perform and have the success that they had.
Right.
So I think it's disingenuous for them at times to encourage that lifestyle that they're not living themselves.
Right. Do you think that the presence of drugs in hip hop today is why we're seeing lesser quality music in hip hop, or like why rap is so accessible these days?
No, I don't think that. I think it's I think in this day and time everything is so easy now.
Right.
Now, you got AI that will actually write a rap for you.
True.
A lot of these guys have listened and watched different artists who don't write their lyrics down, and they go in and try to mimic that style of not thinking about what they're going to say next, just saying the first thing that pops in their head. Mm. So I think the lack of developing your talent is what's reflected in the music nowadays. You know, you have your exceptions, of course. Mm-hmm. You definitely have your exceptions, but the access to being able to just put out anything through your phone now, you get the good and you get the bad. Right. Right.
So your musical process, your music seems to be very laid back, but it exudes a lot of confidence. And so I'm really curious on when you're making music, what's your process?
Process is to listen to a lot of influences of mine before I go into the writing process. Mm-hmm. I remind myself of why I'm doing this, the things that I love about it, from Nas to Andre 3000, Tupac, different influences of mine. I listen to those guys before I start the writing process. And then from that point, you know, I just start to write, you know, and I write, probably by the fifth song, I'll be in a groove. So I just get myself started with 1, 2, 3 records just to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And get myself in the actual zone. So, and I don't stop until I complete 10, 15, whatever my goal is. Uh-huh. I'll stay in that zone until I complete, you know, the amount of songs that I intended to record when I set out.
Okay. Going back to the relationship between drugs and hip hop, how much of your music, be it when you were selling drugs or using them, do you think affected your music? Do you think your music that you're putting out, were you able to write more? Were you able to be artistically creative more?
When I was doing drugs?
Either or. With them, without
selling drugs?
Yeah. All of it. Just so like.
When I was selling drugs, it affected my content.
Okay.
Because I rapped about what I was actually doing.
Right.
So that was, I made drug dealer music. Because at the time, I was a drug dealer.
Right, like your music was more of your sound.
Right. I was hanging around drug dealers.
Right.
And that was what I rapped about. You know, that was the type of thing I rapped about. When I stopped selling drugs, and you know, I smoked marijuana during that time, and I thought it made me more creative, which is not true. You know, during the time that I had to use marijuana, my music is better. Okay. Not doing drugs for me.
Okay.
So I think a lot of artists have been inspired by drugs going back as far as Jimi Hendrix and Rick James and you know, so I would say you have gotten some great material from people that were under the influence of drugs. But for myself now, I choose to write and record. So, you know, I live a sober lifestyle now. So, and I think I make better music that way.
Really?
Yeah.
And so what is your kind of scale for good music? What are you looking for? What is your musical ear here when you speak strictly into rap? What is your musical ear here?
I'm looking for content, first of all. You know, not meaning positive or negative content, but content that has thoughts. Whatever you're talking about, I would like to hear that you put some type of thought into what, you know, what you were saying, being creative, witty with the wordplay. You know, I definitely listen to songwriting and of course the production, the music part of it and how cohesive it is.
Yeah.
You know, and to be honest, it's just a feeling. It's how it feels to me.
Right.
It's not an actual, you know, it's hard to explain because when you hear it, you get goosebumps. You know that this is something special. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just a feeling.
Right.
Right.
And with you saying that you make better music, you feel like when you're sober, you recently spoke about Rehab and how much it changed your life. And in the track, I believe you speak about the Lord and your faith. So can you speak about how much faith and how much Rehab played a role in you getting sober and staying sober?
It's probably my third time in rehab in 2022. And that particular time I chose to reflect on myself instead of focusing on everything around me. Mm-hmm. And by me focusing on myself, I focused on my faith in God, and I really did the work to improve myself. Right. You know, and rehab definitely helped restore my self-esteem and my confidence in myself, and it was hard. It was hard. It was times where I didn't think I could do it because I had failed so many times at trying to control my alcohol use. I had failed a bunch of times. I didn't think I could function without it, you know. So being surrounded by like-minded people and having the support of my family and, you know, God, you know, the Father, praying and just meditation and journaling and just really putting in that work. You know, it continues to this day, you know, in order to keep what I got, you know. So I don't preach the message, but to anyone who feels that they have a problem with alcohol and drugs, I would definitely recommend rehab, you know, to just see if being surrounded by people who've been through what you've been through can get you out of that dark space where you're at. Yeah. Right.
And during this time where you're recovering and you're becoming sober, what is your musical creativeness like? Are you at a block? Do you produce more?
When I came out of it,
yeah,
I had a block.
A block?
Total block, because I wasn't smoking marijuana and I wasn't drinking, and I didn't think I could feel the music, you know, and I just stayed at it. Mm-hmm. And I quit during that time. I probably wouldn't be making music, but I pushed through and I finally realized that the alcohol and the drugs are not what's inspiring me.
Right.
It's you. I have a genuine love for making music. So I allow drugs and alcohol to have the power over my creativity. Mm-hmm. So I've taken that back now. Now I've taken it back and I'm genuinely inspired without the use of alcohol and drugs. And it feels amazing.
That's great. Yeah, I'm so happy to see that.
Yeah.
So they say there's a thin line between genius and crazy. Do you feel like you ride that line pretty much your entire life or musically?
I don't know.
Many of the lines you say are just kind of like, wow, I wouldn't have thought to say it. You're saying the truth, but you're saying it in a way that just makes someone just like, I want to hear that, and it sounds poetic. So it's like, for people to turn pain into such good music, I feel like they have to be kind of like,
what I try to do, I don't want to take one line off during my On this album, it's not one line that I just threw in there. I said, oh yeah, this will sound good. I want every line
intention
to mean something. I want you to, if you hear one line off of my album, I want you to definitely get something from it.
Okay.
And that's my total goal, same way as before when I was doing drug dealer music, I wanted you to get something out of that. It wasn't something good to get, and I think now I want it to be poetic, and like I said, I want every line to hit you.
Right.
And maybe this one won't, but the next one will, because that was my intention. So if I got 16 bars, 10 of them, I want you to feel like, okay, I got something out of that. You know what I mean? I want 16 bars and you can't remember one line that I said. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's very intentional.
And so when putting this album together, you have those songs like New Gospel and I Believe, but then you have tracks like Diamonds. It's like, it's good to have those songs where you want people to hear you, and then those songs where it's just like, okay, I want you to vibe with this song, or I want you to have a good time.
Right.
Do you feel like this album was a good mix of that, or it's just mostly like, I need you to hear me throughout this whole
thing? I think Diamonds and Everything Grand is a good mix of, and I would say Top of the World.
Okay.
And I Believe, War, The Lights. I think those are the deepest tracks on the album, but I think it was a good mixture of mellow and some up-tempo records,
Okay.
But like I said, this album was to introduce me, not a persona, not an act, not a gimmick. This complete album is Eric Estrich. Everything that you hear on this album comes from my heart. It's not one lie on this album. And that's what I want people to really understand when they listen to my music, is that this is not a gimmick. You're getting a real person with real feelings, and I want to make you think, and I want to inspire people that have went through some of the things that I went through, and to help people avoid some of the things that I went through.
Right. So this album is your full circle album.
Yes, I believe it is.
Yes. And you released a song a while back called A Good Mood. It's one of my favorites. And you list a laundry list of like just negative things that were going on in your life. And so this album does feel full circle, one of those being that you became a father since you released that track.
Right.
And so how much has your music changed since just becoming a father?
Do
you make music that you would want your daughter to listen and get something from, or is it just?
Yeah, I made it for my daughter. I made it for all people, and that's why I said earlier, I didn't have her specifically in mind. I had everybody in mind.
Right.
I wanted to make something that when she gets older and she listens to it, she can learn more about her father. So definitely, what I'm doing now with my daughter on social media with my records and my albums, I'm making them for when she gets older.
Right.
Now, it's a weird thing to think, but it's like time capsules, because when I'm not here, I want her to be able to come back and listen to my music and still be able to hear wisdom from her father.
Yeah.
And that's like, to be able to have this gift and to be able to do this now, knowing that later in life she's going to actually listen to this, it's exciting. Like, yeah, it makes every word, every song I write, it makes me, excited.
So does it feel easier, or you feel a bit nervous because you want to make sure you get the words right and the message right?
I think the nervous part comes from when I want to be creative without thinking about being a father. When I just want to have fun and just make this song and talking about women or whatever, and I'm thinking like, oh, what it say? What if my daughter hears this when I get older? So that's where the tough part comes in, and letting go. Okay, it's okay to be creative. This is not kids' music, what I mean? So yeah, that's what the hard part comes in.
And I think when she's older, she'll get that. She'll find you being cheeky in there.
Yeah.
So how important was it for you to speak your truth on this album? I know you've just been speaking about this is Eric coming out. How important was this? Just kind of like, my music career, can I continue until I do this? Or was it just, I want to go ahead and do this and get it over with?
This was a pivot in my music career. This was first of all, I changed my name. I went from Instagram Music. Now I'm going by God-given name, Eric Estrich. So that's a huge change because people have known me as Green for decades as far as my artist name. So it was just time.
Mm-hmm.
It was just time for me to tell my truth. It was just time to stop hiding behind a persona and a name. And Mr. Grand, my music was more definitely arrogant because of my name and because of what I was trying to represent at that time. Like, I'm the best, I'm better than everybody. Like, nobody can touch me. And now it's more like I just want to tell my truth, tell my story. Right. This album is not about proving I'm the best lyricist or I'm better than anybody. It's really about me expressing my life, what I've been through, honestly and openly. That's the only thing I'm trying to accomplish. So I put myself on here as a child because these are the things that I wish he would have been told. And that's what this represents. And this light around represents the potential.
Right.
The potential, what's going on in his brain, that you can't see. So that's what this picture represents. And that's what I was trying to convey with this album.
Okay. Andre 3000 recently spoke about him not having anything to rap about after 40. What are your thoughts on that?
I think to each his own. And I think he's still expressing himself. It's not in hip hop form, but just him being creative is a great thing for people that's been doing it as long as he has. Because he could honestly not be doing anything creative, So I think we should appreciate the fact that he's recording and he's still putting out projects. That's inspiration to me. He's doing it his way. I'm doing it how I'm doing it. Big Boy, other artists, in our age group are expressing themselves in different ways. And I think it's important just to be present. Be present for the culture. Well, however you're expressing yourself is up to you. So I got some things I want to try in the future. So. Yeah.
So which song on the album was the hardest to write? Which one did you have difficulty getting yourself past that block to actually sing?
I believe.
Why?
Because I said a lot of that song from the time I was born to some of my childhood to the military, to getting out of the military, getting bad decisions that I made getting out, which I spoke about earlier. Mm-hmm. It's all of that in that one song.
Yeah.
In that one song. So it was the hardest to write because I had to end it. I didn't know where it ended.
Right.
It actually could have kept going. It could have been a 7 or 8 minute song. So, and for me, that's the most important song on the album because if you don't know me, if you've never heard my music, I would say that's the record that you should listen to kind of understand who you're listening to.
Yeah.
Who Eric Estrich is, and it's a kind of quick synopsis on who I am as a person and how I got to this point.
When writing this album and putting it together, was there a sense of shame or guilt that you felt? Or is it like the release of that?
Definitely, should I say this? Should I say that? Like the line I got on War where I say 126 pounds praying that no one noticed. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a true story. Like I said, it's kind of shame, but it comes back to what I said earlier. Going through rehab and therapy, these are the things that you express during your one-on-one therapy sessions, during your group sessions. So you become comfortable with telling people the truth because you realize that your truth is somebody else's truth also.
Yeah.
So that gets rid of the shame when you want to help somebody. And somebody can say, oh man, I relate to that. I went through that too, or I'm going through that now. So there was a little guilt and shame in the beginning, but for the sake of the truth, I'm willing to experience those feelings.
Okay. And so were you able to forgive those? Because a lot of times we have people who we feel wronged us and we're not able to push past towards happiness. Do you feel like this album is you extending your forgiveness to those people, or?
I'll say to that, I think I forgive, but I don't forget.
Okay.
That's the point I'm at right now.
Okay.
I forgive, but I don't forget. And I won't forget. So, because going through that, you see the true colors of a lot of people, and at times you feel you deserve to be treated like crap. You think that, because you're looking at things that you've done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So when you become sober and you have a clear mind and people are still treating you like crap, you feel like you deserve it because you have to develop your self-love. I'm at a point now where I love myself. I love myself enough not to damage myself.
Mm-hmm.
I love myself enough not to be put down or believe someone's negative comments about me. And that feels great because if you don't have any self-love like I did before, that's how I ended up turning to alcohol and drugs in the wrong crowd, looking for love. Mm-hmm. So now I can love myself first, and therefore I can, handle life's problems better. But to answer your question, I forgive, but I don't forget.
Well said.
All right.
So what are you looking forward to next in your life, and what should we expect from your music career going forward now that you've rebranded yourself?
And after this album, we're going to run this album, more videos from this particular album. My foot is actually broken now while we're doing this interview, so I'm unable to perform now, so I can't wait to perform some tracks off this album. But, the next album, I'm already working on it. Mm-hmm. It's close to being finished, so it'll be out later this year. Okay. Maybe around August, and we'll do this whole thing all over again.
I look forward to it. Yeah. One last question for you. Will we ever hear your daughter on the track?
She's on the track.
She is. On
my next album. It's very brief. It's very brief, but she's on the intro to a song called Me and Sage. Me and Sage. She's on the song. So
I am looking forward to that.
You will hear her on my next album.
Okay. Anything else you want to put on the record, set it straight? What do you want the world to leave hearing about Eric Estrich?
I think I've said everything. I want to thank you for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. And everybody look out for the album February 23rd.
Yes.
The album will be out. And that's pretty much it. It's coming out on Orchestra Media Group, which is my label.
Okay.
And I'm excited about the release of it. And I thank you for doing this.
It was wonderful talking to you. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.